G'day and welcome to Pub4Heretics. Grab a chair and get yourself a mug of grot snot and join the conversation. I'm your loyalist co-host chaplain, Blake, joined by these heretics.
This is James.
And I'm Corbin.
And today we will start our podcast journey with a brief episode on the timeline of Warhammer 40k. Not covering everything, but just enough for someone new to get started. Corbin and I know a fair amount of Warhammer lore, but James knows next to nothing. So we decided to make this podcast for those of you that also want to learn more, with a healthy side of rough humour from three Australians.
Well, to start this timeline episode off, before humans tried to kill every other race, before the space elves ruined the galaxy for everyone else, there was a species known as the Old Ones. The Old Ones were a reptilian species who developed life in the galaxy as they travelled across it. They were potent psykers using the power of the warp for their magical abilities. And in their process across the galaxy, they birthed many new species, including the Eldari and the Kroks, who later evolved into the Orcs as we now know them. The Catan, a separate species described as star gods or stellar vampires, also existed in the universe, but with no physical form, just drifting around, feeding on stars for their energy, with little other purpose. The warp, or immaterium, has existed as long as real universe has, and is a reflection of it, where souls go after death, and all beings and their emotions are reflected in it. There are also gods that dwell in this realm of unreal space. Among those, the most notable are Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Khorne, also known as the gods of chaos.
Basically the warp is the upside down in Stranger Things. Like it's a mirror reflection of our world, of our dimension.
So is it in the same dimension as us, or in a...
No, it's a different dimension, but it's like overlapping us, and we use it, and most races use that to travel through the distance of the galaxy.
Yeah, so it is unseen by most, existing as like a fifth or sixth dimension that kind of exists over the top of ours, and is affected by our realm, and also affects our realm in different ways. And it is also the source that magical abilities in 40k draw their power from this extra realm.
So is that where Miles Morales is in the Spider-Verse?
Yes. Basically, it's like hell. It's like a purgatory hell dimension where the laws of physics don't make sense, and there's chaos entities and demonic entities trying to, make their way into real space. If you ever try and travel your ship through it, they will try and attack your ship. Unless you've got a special shield up called the Gellerfield, they're like sharks in the water. They'll try and get you at every opportunity.
Well, it's to add to that, it's not only hell, it's more like if you had a combined hell and heaven. So it's a spiritual realm, because not all the gods in the Unreal Space are evil. The Orc gods exist there as well, and we'll learn about this later on in the episode, but also the Eldari gods, as well as several other gods, also exist in this. So they're not evil entities as such, but they are entities that take your souls when you die, and that powers them. Also, your emotions and things that you do in real space also empowers these entities.
It's basically where the gods hang out, and where the power, where a lot of people get their powers from, where they can make deals with these gods and essentially empower themselves, but also make deals with the devil, basically.
And also, by dipping into it, psykers get their magical abilities, but can also see the future, because time is not linear in the warp or the immaterium.
Yeah.
But continuing on, our story starts with the Necrontyr, who were a race developed in a system known as the Halo Stars, wink wink, an area with crazy radiation storms and solar winds. Their lives were short-lived and riddled with issues and diseases because of this. They all effectively had super cancer. And so they set out across the universe with their technological advancements to find a solution to these problems plaguing them. On their travels, they encountered the Old Ones, the reptilians mentioned earlier, who had conquered immortality but refused to share this gift with the Necrontyr. The Necrontyr hated them for this because of their short-lived lives and declared war on the Old Ones, which later became known as the War in Heaven, technology versus magic. Silent King Zarek, leader of the Necrons, found a Catan, one of the previously mentioned star gods, hidden on a world, and sought their favor, developing a physical shell out of living metal. He communicated with the Catan. One such Catan, known later as the Deceiver, promised to help the Necrontyr in return for destroying the Old Ones who had battled with the Catan for centuries. Are you following so far?
Yeah, it's just a lot to process.
Yeah, that's why we're trying to leave gaps for you.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. I'm condensing millions of years into a very short period here.
Which is why it's so frustrating trying to like narrow all this down into a plot point.
Yeah.
Suppose it is only 40,000 years.
Yeah.
So
and it takes 40,000 words to describe.
The path to immortality promised to the Necrontyr was called biotransference, and replaced the disease-riddled flesh of the Necrontyr with the same living metal used for the shells of the Catan. This process also removed the souls of the Necrontyr, however, which were devoured by the Catan. Only afterwards did Zarek realize the mistake he had made in condemning his race to soulless automatons. The Necrontyr had become the Necrons that we now know.
They were basically most of them were dragged kicking and screaming into these biotransference vaults, and then they had their flesh like basically seared from their bodies and flayed, and then turned into metal.
Oh.
So they were given the gift of immortality, but like it's one of those genie wishes.
Absolutely. It's some monkey
like
paw
fun.
shit.
Yeah, monkey paw, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So then, the now immortal Necrons and the Catan set out to destroy the Old Ones who had joined with their newly developed species to fight. It was a bloody war. It lasted a long time, but eventually the Old Ones were killed off, feeding thousands and thousands of souls to the Immaterium, which fed the beings that also dwelt there. The Catan and the Necrons ruled the galaxy after this, but the now bored Catan started fighting between each other for control. This ended up with several dead Catan, and the Catan numbers reducing drastically. But, angered by what had happened to them in biotransference, the Necrons, led by Zarek, turned on the Catan and built god-killing cannons which split the Catan into shards that were then captured in Tesseract labyrinth cages that they had developed, and these Catan shards were then used to power the Necrons' technology to further heights.
Because the problem is that you can't really kill the Catan, and you can't really like destroy them because they are literally living gods. So how do you do it? You split them up, and then you basically use them as batteries for your machines now. And that's how awesome the Necrons are.
And in a Pokeball fashion, they send these Catan shards out to destroy people at their bidding as well.
Yeah, you can actually play the Catan on the tabletop as well. You can bring them out.
However, after all of this, one of the Old Ones' creations, the Eldari, or Space Elves, hated the Necrons and began to fight for control of the galaxy. Having sustained great losses against the Old Ones, and then fighting literal gods, the Necrons decided that they would wait out the inevitable extinction of the Elves, who were creating problems for themselves using psychic powers, and went to sleep in tomb worlds for 60 million years, hoping to wake up after the Elves had wiped themselves out. In this time, humanity developed into spacefaring and spread across the galaxy, reaching new technological heights. The Eldari, later known as the Eldar, ruled in the Necron's absence, creating extra-dimensional portals known as the Webway, which is essentially a safer way of traveling across the galaxy, as opposed to using the warp as humans do, and using their psychic powers without any inhibition. The lack of any rivals and the efficiency of their magic powers left little in the way of work. This led to boredom, which turned to depravity, as they created pleasure cults and used stimulants, sex, and torture to fulfill themselves.
Wait, there's
Yep.
sex in 40k?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Much.
So
So much. Sex,
It's
drugs,
only,
and rock and roll, baby.
it's only the Space Marines who don't have sex.
Except for
Oh.
the Emperor's children.
The Eldar, though, they like to flay each other.
They get down.
Yeah. Well, basically, it
They
happened.
strip the flesh off while they're
They
mating.
literally, yeah,
Yeah.
as like shows, like, you know, imagine a Vegas show, but just like no inhibitions,
No laws.
no laws at all stopping them, and like it's just because they had reached a technological point where they didn't have a struggle and they didn't have problems, or like, you know, at least major problems. Like there was no worrying about food or architecture or science, and no worrying about like traveling through the warp because they had the webway. So on top of that, they didn't have any problems. So eventually, this just led to them going deeper and deeper into depravity, and leading to that.
So they
And
were just
you-
bored.
Yeah. And you thought that amputee midget porn was bad? You should
Oh.
see what the Drukari get up to.
Oh, jeez.
This wave of death and flux of emotions created a new entity in the Immaterium. The fourth Chaos God, known as Slanesh, or She Who Thirsts.
Or the Prince of Pleasure. Because basically all of this like depravity and all of this like emotion just like and being channeled through the psychic powers of the Eldar just eventually like created another Chaos God.
And for those of you listening, surprise, surprise, Chaplain Blake is a Slanesh simp.
I'm not a Slanesh simp, and that is heresy. I will shoot you for that right now.
Anyway, back to the story. Warp storms caused by their feeding of Eldar souls and pleasure and all sorts of depravity that they conducted made interstellar travel and communication almost impossible, cutting the human colonies off from their home on Terra and dividing the human race.
Because essentially when Slanesh came about, she or they or him looked at the Eldar and was like, yummy. So now Slanesh has like a finger on all of the souls of the Eldar, and then just ate billions of them.
Hang on, I'm getting there. You're getting ahead of yourself.
No, I know.
The Eldari continued their shenanigans, and with even more souls and emotions being fed into the warp, an ethereal explosion occurred that spanned across the galaxy, which killed most of the Eldari, sucking their souls to Slanesh. Their souls made Slanesh nice and fat, who they had created in their ignorance. This left a huge warp rift, known as the Eye of Terror in the galaxy, affecting every other species, because the Eldari just total degenerates. Most of the Eldari gods, who had also existed in the Immaterium, were then eaten by the now empowered Slanesh. And now, Blake can tell you about how some guy who called himself the Emperor went out to find the divided groups of humanity and force them to work under his rule, using superhumans and war, while killing off anything that isn't human.
You're crossing the line of heresy here, mate.
I am
Alright, let's-
so far over the line of heresy.
so far over the line, Nurgle boy.
Down
Alright,
with
let's-
the Corpse Emperor.
Yeah, whatever. All right, let's get on to the actual history that matters. Okay, this genuinely hurt me trying to cut a lot of this out and reduce humanity's history to a couple of dot points, because the Horus Heresy alone has 40 plus books in it, and Corbin and I have been trying to read them all, and we're not even a third of the way.
There's a lot. There's a lot.
Before we move on to the best part of Warhammer 40k lore, do you have any questions before we continue on, James?
I have plenty, but I feel like a lot of them are going to get answered.
They probably won't go away.
Any questions about Necron or Eldar I can answer?
Yeah, because I'm moving on to humans now.
I mean, it just sounds like Slanesh was a horny bitch.
Yes.
Or a horny they, them, or whatever.
Yep.
And it just sounds like the Necrons are just basically like the Terminator.
Yeah, but they kill gods.
It is funny that you say that, because when the Necrons originally came out, they had next to no lore, so everybody just assumed that they were like Terminator machines and that was it. And they are still that, but now they actually have a backstory.
Yeah.
And they're fucking awesome.
Yeah, arguably have the better backstories out of all the other Xenos races.
Oh, they're actually quite amazing. Their technological achievements competed with the highest level psychic abilities that existed throughout that time. The old ones use their psychic powers to create whole new races on these planets, and the Necrons came in and they were like, haha, gun go, boom, you're dead.
And all of this, just so that I'm aware, and also the people that may not know, all of this is happening before what would be 40k.
This is like the Necron stuff happens millions of years, like millions of years before humanity.
Before we were even apes.
Okay, so this is like right at the start, and then we go into the future with 40k.
So
this was in the beginning.
Yeah, so the old ones existed at the birth of the Milky Way.
Okay.
Yeah, there is some argument that they are the first race that, became starfaring in our Milky Way galaxy.
Well, they were the first sentient race in the galaxy.
First sentient race, yeah, that's right.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah. And then the Necrons came along.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who were the first humanoid race?
Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah. So, did you want to ask any other questions before we continue on to humanity?
No. Let's get to the flesh meat.
Well, we were all waiting for the superhumans.
The best part, arguably. All right.
Oh, mate. He's so anti-Xenos. It's going to come across. I'm going to have such a hard time.
I am a chaplain.
He's like, humanity's the best. It was so hard because there's all the important parts of 40k of the humanity, and I'm like, screw you, man. Xenos are cool.
Nah.
I know this is like somewhat in the middle of our story time, but should we explain what we actually follow? So, like, I am a bit of a chaos fish. I have quite a lot of chaos. And then Blake, you're the loyalist with the Imp Fist.
Yep, the Imperial Fists are my boys. Rogel Dawn forever.
Even the traitor legions he likes aren't like chaos.
Don't follow chaos that much.
Yeah, aren't chaos.
But no, I say that, but like my favorite chaos legion is the Night Lords, and then follow that is the Word Bearers and Emperor's Children. But like, I would still love the Loyalists more.
Or like, oh yeah, let me use the warp powers without actually following a chaos god.
Well, I'm into yin yang. I'm into the one extreme or the other. Like, I'm either against it or I'm all for it.
Yeah. Whereas I like me some Space Marines as much as the next person. I like a couple of the legions, particularly the Ultramarines and the White Scars. Controversial. A lot of people don't like the Ultramarines. I still do. But
It's the price of being the Poiser boys.
yeah, they're hated on because they're given too much representation, but they're still cool. But on the other side, the aspect that neither Blake or James are really into is I am a big fan of the Xenos, except the Space Elves. and
Yeah.
and I am a hardcore Nurgle worshipper.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Filthy heretic. This whole Pub4Heretics is just a setup so that way I can lead you back to the Emperor's Light.
The Emperor's like, your corpse Emperor means nothing to me. Follow a real god and not some skeleton on a throne who just wishes to be worshipped.
Does it upset you that a human rose to the power of your god? Show me on the doll where the Emperor hurt you.
He doesn't have 1/10 of the power of a single Chaos God.
Alright, now you're just speaking illogic fallacies. Anyways.
Is the Emperor old mate on the chair?
Yep.
Yeah, he's the dead guy on the throne.
On the chair. Guy on the chair. That's
that hurt.
he's the dead guy on the chair.
Alright, okay. Continuing on. So, humanity progresses as you would assume in any sort of sci-fi setting. That we become so technologically advanced that we basically become like arguably quite powerful, like almost Eldar and Necron. Like not quite there, but almost that level. Like humanity at this point has like these giant Titan machines that use to cut lumber, and at one point we had guns that shoot mini black holes.
Okay,
like,
if I can jump in.
Yeah, you can jump in, whatever.
Nowhere near approached god-killing cannon level of technology.
Yeah, well, we would have if it wasn't for the Eldar. But anyways, I'll get to that.
The Eldar did screw everything up, but we can agree on that.
What do you mean? Oh yeah, they screwed everything up.
We both agree that the Eldar screwed everything up.
Yeah, that's why we don't play them.
Yeah, exactly. Fucking space
and because they're too goated. Okay, and at this point, this is what we call the age of technology around the 25th millennium. Humanity was at its highest. This is when they started using the warp to travel to different parts of the galaxy and begin spreading humanity's influence throughout the Milky Way galaxy. Basically, I'm not sure if we've already covered it, but the warp is essentially like a mirror dimension of our galaxy, and we use that dimension to travel from one side of the galaxy to the other. Like, what's it called? Nether travel in Minecraft. And it's like the Upside Down in Stranger Things. It's a mirror dimension of what we do, but like it's just hell.
Yeah, it creates a portal through the magical realm.
Yeah,
that laws of physics don't apply to, which sometimes allows people to travel faster than light, and other times it spits them out a couple of 100 years later.
Yeah, or 100 years back in the past, because it doesn't follow the rules of time. If you've essentially seen the movie Event Horizon, that's what we're talking about here.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Now, two things happened that screwed everything up. Humanity had created AI. AI machines that turned against humanity, and in this war, it used up a lot of the resources of humanity, trying to put down these AI machines.
Skynet!
And then, Skynet from Terminator, basically. And then the Eldar and their stupid murder orgies created Slaanesh. And because of that, it created these long warp storms that made it impossible to warp travel between star systems, cutting off humanity from each other, and these colonies were left to fend for themselves. And that was known as the Age of Strife. Humanity kind of fell in on itself. Some prospered and became empires, and a lot of them turned medieval, and a lot of them became regressive techno-barbarians, and other planets just died. And it was at this point when the Emperor, Big He himself, stepped into the light, being the 10-foot-tall, psychic-powered demigod that he was, and went to try and unite humanity and take their rightful place as the rulers of the galaxy.
Literal eye roll, but continue.
Now, see, Big E was smart, because he knew that he could not do it alone, and he had already failed with his Thunder Warriors, which were experimental space marines. So he's decided to make a pact with the 4 Chaos Gods that resided in the warp, Tzeentch, Nurgle, Khorne, and Slaanesh. And he said to them, "Give me the power to create 20 suns to be my generals, and I'll leave you and your realms alone."
For someone so smart, he made a lot of mistakes and decided to trick literal gods to steal their power. But yeah, really smart.
It worked, didn't it?
Did it?
Yeah, it did. So Big E created the Primarchs. Now, these are 20 men. They were basically little versions of the Emperor, and each created for their own purpose. One was the Guardian, one was meant to be the Governor, one's the Executioner, and so forth and so forth.
Yes, all the different Primarchs. We will get to them in later episodes in detail.
We will mention all of them in their future episodes going forward.
Worry not, we will deep dive into all of this.
Even the missing ones?
Well, that's what I was about to get into, but we'll get to that in a second. The Chaos Gods got wind of Big E's plans, so they decided to yeet all 20 of the Primarchs into the warp, scattering them across the galaxy.
Again, further explanation will be given on this topic.
Big E then went on to use the Primarch's genetic material that he still had to create the Space Marine Legions, so that each Primarch would have his own legion to command and help take over the galaxy. He then embarked on the Great Crusade to unite humanity and find his missing sons in some sort of messed up scavenger hunt.
There's so much to be said here, but we don't have time to go into the detail of this, and this will be covered in each Primarch's story.
Yeah, we'll literally be here all day otherwise. Now, I'm not going to mention all of the Primarchs, but I am going to mention Horus, because he plays a big part in this. The first Primarch the Emperor found was Horus.
Wait, sorry, did you say Horus?
Yeah, Horus.
Horus?
Yeah, Horus.
Horus, okay.
Horus?
Smartass.
Is his second name Heresy? Because I've heard about this before.
Well done, you are the Warhammer 40k. Good job.
Continue along, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. The first Primarch he found was Horus, and Horus and the Emperor became really close, and became his favoured son. And when he found the other Primarchs, they all looked at Horus as like their big brother to aspire to be. All but 2 of the Primarchs were found. We don't know what happened to these other 2 Primarchs, but we rumour that they were killed because Chaos had already corrupted them, or because of other reasons.
Yeah, another mistake on Big E's part.
Yeah, well, it was either...
Never found
the main actual meta reason is because Games Workshop wanted to create like 2 slots, so that way the players can create their own loyalist and heretical Primarch and make their own legions. But that didn't make sense in the lore, so they just said, oh, they're the lost Primarchs.
And they came up with a better idea for it later on anyway.
Exactly, yeah. And yes, so the remaining 18 Primarchs were found on different types of worlds. Some were found the leaders of sprawling empires, and others like the kings of barren death worlds.
Most ruled their planet, but 1 or 2 kind of failed in that regard.
And we'll get to those in later episodes.
Absolutely.
And in time, the brothers formed their own relationships with each other and their own rivalries, such as brothers do. Now, getting on to the big part. We're getting on to the big part, better known as the Horus Heresy.
Wait, does this have something to do with Horus?
No, not at all.
And his heresy?
It's about his brother named Heresy.
Horus Harry?
Horus Harry, yeah. Horus Hennessy. Big E then said, you know what? We've conquered most of the galaxy. I'm going to head back to Terra. I'm just going to go work on something. But Horus is now War Master, so you got to listen to him like as if it's me. Peace out, I'm out.
And this went down like a pile of lead.
Mm-hmm. Now that left a lot of Primarchs bitter at the Emperor for leaving them, and some of them thought they should have been War Master over Horus. And this also sowed seeds of doubts amongst their brothers. Then, Horus was wounded, and a Primarch getting wounded is not something common, but he got wounded by a special Chaos knife, and the 4 Chaos Gods took this opportunity and manipulated Horus, showing him full truths and half-truths, and showing him the future and maybe not the future. At this point, he doesn't know, about Big E being a liar and a power thief.
I want to point out, the sword that wounded him was Nurgle flexing and being like, your power means nothing.
Yeah. Because Big E, being the genius that he is, did not tell any of his sons about the existence of the Chaos Gods. Only him and a few select others knew that the Chaos Gods resided in the warp.
Genius.
Yeah, pure genius. That is a big mistake on his part, because this led to some of his sons being corrupted before Horus even. And so when Horus woke up after being stabbed, he talked to half of the other Primarchs into joining him to go destroy the Imperium and kill the Emperor for lying and taking power from the gods.
And also, in that point, there was a feeling of betrayal and also a worry amongst the Astartes and the Primarchs, those of who knew what had happened to the original versions of the Primarchs that had all been hunted out and killed when their purpose was done, that there wasn't going to be anything left for them to do when the galaxy had been conquered, and the Emperor would just do away with them.
Now, Magnus, the Primarch of the Thousand Suns, who was also a powerful psyker and using the powers of the warp, like Big E, psychically tried to warn the Emperor about this betrayal from Horus. But in so doing, he took a sledgehammer to the project that Big E was creating back on planet Earth. He was trying to create his own Eldar webway to help humanity so they didn't have to rely on the warp to travel. But when Magnus came in like the Kool-Aid Man and destroyed it accidentally, it created a giant warp storm above Terra that had demons spilling out of it. So Big E sat on his big golden throne and used his powers to hold back the hole in reality. But in so doing, this took Big E out of the oncoming civil war.
All because he didn't trust his sons with the knowledge that he had.
And chastised them for using the abilities that he gave them.
Another big mistake from Big E.
I feel like you're just laying it in a little bit thick, mate.
Well, do you have another way of describing the fact that he made a huge mistake in not warning Magnus about this? He told him about everything else. Anyway,
I'm not gonna dignify you with a response.
Continue with your story then.
Horus and his traitorous brothers then begin to purge the loyalists in their ranks by sending them to a planet called Isfahan 3, that they then decided the virus bomb to hell to kill them all.
And just for the listeners, what is a virus bomb?
A virus bomb is essentially, imagine a nuke, but then on top of that it also spills out a flesh-eating virus that kills everything in its path.
Yes. And then ignites and burns everything away afterwards.
Yep, like some horrible nightmare.
Absolutely ridding anything from that lived on the planet of its life and existence.
Yeah, it literally is a planet killer. And then these traitorous brothers and Horus went to Isfahan 5, where they surprised and cornered 3 loyalist legions and outgunned them 8-3, with 1 Primarch dead, 1 captured, and another on the run. And who those are, we're going to get to another episode. This war, I'm going to skip a lot, which is going to hurt me, but this war lasted 7 years, with the galaxy engulfed in a civil war, with it ending on Terra.
Oh, big war against Big E because of all the mistakes he made.
I'm going to start muting you soon, mate. Yeah. So Big E, and this all ended up on Terra, the Siege of Terra. This is where it was going to finally end. So Big E got up from the Golden Throne to go take on Horus and end this once and for all. But he just couldn't do it, because at the end of the day, regardless of everything he had done, Horus was still his favorite son. In so doing, Horus took advantage of this hesitation and broke the Emperor, nearly killing him. Like, we're talking slit his throat, tore his arm out of his socket, and destroyed one of his eyes, and like broke his back over his knee.
Not the all-powerful Emperor.
And I'd also like to mention...
Ended up in the chair?
We're almost getting there. But I'd also like to mention that Horus is souped up on Chaos Warp Juice.
Yes, because the small amount of power from the Chaos Gods is still stronger than the Emperor.
Oh, so he's on Tren.
Yeah, pretty much.
Gotcha.
And it was only when a lone loyalist... I'm not sure if this is still canon because the new book, the final book of Siege of Terror just came out, so this could be wrong. But it was only when a lone loyalist stood between them and said enough. And then guess what happened next?
He died.
He proceeded to flay him alive. But what that did was that galvanized the Emperor's will, because seeing Horus flay this lone Imperial soldier, flaying him alive, made him see that Horus was gone. This is no longer Horus. So he summoned all of his psychic power and Kamehameha'd him so hard that he burned Horus's soul. Horus can never be resurrected. He will never come back.
His soul was burnt out. Not even entering the Immaterium.
And then traitors ran away. Big E was dragged back to the Golden Throne, where he was both alive but also about to die, and he was put onto the Golden Throne to keep him alive. He is now technically alive on there, keeping the warp from opening above Terra, and has become a lighthouse beacon in the warp for humanity, but he is slowly rotting away. And I'll just share a picture in the chat with what he looks like now.
But also, the other legions sieging Terra left for their own reasons and didn't all necessarily run away. A couple had already gotten bored and left at this point.
Yeah, most had just been like, this is not going to work, and then just flew off. Others were just not listening to any of the orders from Horus and just going about doing their own thing. And yeah, but either way, they still ran.
The Slanesh worshippers ran out of human civilians to torture and left before this even happened.
Yeah, because they were just like, oh, there's no more fun here. And they just left. But anyways, so the rest of the traders dipped and left. For one reason or another, after this, the loyal Primarchs started disappearing or were killed off, and humanity no longer had a leader to rally behind. Over the next 10,000 years, because humanity had no leader to guide them, they just went into full zealotry and regression, and started treating the Emperor like a god. Despite the fact he would have hated that as a fedora-wearing atheist, he hated religion and did not want to be known as a god, and chastised his own sons when they told him that he was a god. The Sisters of Battle, which is one of the factions you can play in the game, became the fighting force of this Church of the Emperor, and the Inquisition, which are like base cops and detectives, was founded to hunt down heretics and looking for problems inside the Imperium. Humanity has now become paranoid and so overpopulated, and just to the point where the grimdark really sets in. It has become the exact opposite of what Big E wanted.
Supposedly.
Most likely, he didn't want religion about him. Regardless of what you think, that is what he said.
Yes, so there are a few theories on that we will get into in an argument episode that Blake and I will have on this very topic later on.
Absolutely. Now, going to the 40k, the year 40,000 where the game currently takes place, Tyranids have rocked up looking to eat the universe. The Necrons are back. Yeah, om nom nom. Necrons are back and saying, why are these children on my lawn? Get off my lawn. Orcs are having a good time thumping everyone, just enjoying their life. Chaos is back causing shenanigans. The Tau are just trying to make friends with everybody. The Leagues of Votan just want your stuff. The Eldar are trying to regroup, and the Dark Eldar are just having a good time. Some of the Primarchs have returned, Loyalist and Heretic, and some are yet to return, and some can't because some of them are gone. And honestly, that's where we are in 40k.
And pointing out that the Dark Eldar having fun is stealing people from worlds and torturing them. And turning them into living furniture.
Not kidding. Like turning them into a nice desk, or a nice lampshade, or a nice hat.
While they're still alive. And
while they're still alive.
Full of stimulants so that they feel everything to an excess. Because they're sadistic bastards.
Goes without saying that the Dark Eldar are the most objectively evil race in the galaxy.
Absolutely. They are evil elves.
Now, James, do you have any questions? Because you're about to start your pop quiz.
Oh. Am I going to get a grade on it?
Well, it depends. Do you have any questions?
By asking that, you already fail.
Yeah. Oh. You did not bring a pencil, therefore you have failed. You lose. God. Good day, sir.
I don't have any questions just yet. Some of this stuff, like little bits and pieces, I have worked out.
Mm-hmm.
But no, at the moment I'm pretty good.
Nothing you need clearing up?
Do you want me to explain more about how the Emperor is the bad guy in this story?
No, we don't need to hear that. No. We don't need to hear such heresy.
I think I already know that old mate on the chair is not the greatest person.
Excellent.
I would like. No,
excellent.
You've turned in heretic. Nah, you both have to die.
I am chaos, so
your Pub4Heretics is turning against you.
Anyways,
You just have to like convince me. You just have to tell me more about him, and maybe I'll see the light.
Oh, what
Yeah,
good
who
did he
knows?
do? What good did he actually do?
Galvanized humanity and arguably created a bastion of hope in a grim, dark universe.
Oh yeah, he became a tyrant over humanity that forced other portions of
Show me which
humanity.
faction is not tyrannical. And you can't even say
Just
Nurgle.
want to have
Yeah,
a good
bias.
time.
Bias.
The orcs
Yeah,
just want to have a
the
good
bias
time.
inherent in the system. Yeah. Sure. Hypocrite.
Don't ask me a question if you're just gonna call it bias.
Yeah,
Let me show you how
Nah. Bias. Nah. Hypocrite.
Show me the way.
So yes, our next episode, if we're finished up here, is we're going to be covering Space Marines in general, and then we're going to be moving on to faction focuses. We're going to be covering like Primarchs. We're going to be covering specific armies that people want to play, or if you want to know more about those. Drop a comment down below if you what you guys want to see us do next, or what you want to see us cover, or any feedback at all. Because we're not professionals. If you haven't figured that out by now, we're just dudes. I don't know, right? We're just dudes that like Warhammer so much, and our conversations, we were just like, you know what, this would be good. Just show it to the world, see what happens.
I also want to say that we're going to have book club episodes on the books that we have all read. Blake and I have
currently reading,
or about to read, and Blake and I have already read a lot of books already. But also, we have, because there is room for interpretation in a lot of these, differing opinions, as is already shown in this episode. So we will have episodes where Blake and I just argue about different points for the fun of it on different aspects of the lore that are
the only fun thing,
interpretation.
The only fun thing is, proving you wrong, you filthy heretic.
You're yet to do that, so let's see the
fun. Oh, I think I've done that multiple times in this episode, mate. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Big E, fantastic. Made so many mistakes.
And I will just sit here and listen to all of it.
Why not? But yes, that is the briefest of brief timelines that we have talked about for Warhammer 40k. Now, like I said, going forward, we're going to cover other topics like the Primarchs and other parts of the history, and delving a little bit deeper into it, because we wanted to do a brief overview of the timeline as like the tree, and then we were going to branch out and fill it out with all the other aspects in between. And it didn't seem fair that we would like jump straight into one of the Primarchs or jump into one of the factions without giving the context of the timeline.
If you are listening to this in order and haven't jumped in halfway through,
like most of you probably have. But anyways, I digress.
We also have been talking about doing some battle reports, possibly with us actually playing the game. So
yeah, in the future, with us actually playing our armies against each other, doing some Let's Plays with like Dawn of War or Dark Tide or whatever, and then just doing whatever else, Warhammer related we can. And maybe some reaction videos when the next edition comes out.
Yeah, and who knows, in our battle reports, you might even see James or Blake beat me in a game of Warhammer 40k.
It is yet to happen. That's because we're not playing objectives yet. We're figuring it out the rules as we slowly go.
Wow, that's some fighting words.
Yeah.
I had to go and
get out of my pub.
I had to go spend so much money to try and beat you, and yet still have not won.
I find it funny that you know the least lore out of both of us, and yet you have a bigger army than both of us.
I have to decrease my army just to verse both of you, together.
I know, right?
Crazy.
And yet my orcs just stomp all over you.
Bloody Chaos Space Marines. Why can't they be better?
I don't know, mine go pretty hard.
Mine go pretty hard.
Nurgle forever!
Alright, was there anything else you guys wanted to cover before we head out?
Oh, I think that's as much as my brain can take.
That's fair. We probably overloaded a little bit, but it's also hard to try and decrease context at the same time without trying to overload somebody at the same time, or underwhelm it at the same time.
Yeah, we do want to say this is just the briefest of mentions of these things, and we will be going into deeper details on all of this because it is extravagant lore. It is really amazing.
Yeah.
The reason that we've fallen in love with it and want to share it with all of you is because it is very detailed. All of these little things that we've mentioned, like my part covered some 60 million years, and I broke it down into like a few paragraphs, but there's so much more to go into detail about all of these different things, and we can't wait to share it with all of you.
Exactly, and hopefully that like our passion and our obsession can be infectious to others, and hopefully bring some sort of positivity, and also sharing different opinions. Like that's the main reason why we started this more than anything. And it's going to be interesting as well because I started when I had to do the humanity side of thing. I started off with I did 6 pages and I had to get it down to 2, and we're still going on.
Yeah, and he still managed to show his bias for humanity because
it's not bias if it's correct.
The humans are not the greatest part of 40k, even though I
respectfully disagree.
That's why they always lose to the demons, huh?
yeah, sure, whatever. Well, still haven't beaten us yet,
Wow.
Anyways, how do you want to head out, guys? Any mentions you want to say, or?
No, I think just thank you for listening. Please support.
Yeah, honestly, if you've made it this far, thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for listening to our nonsense. We have just the best time recording these videos. Yeah. And please like and subscribe. Stay put for more interesting nonsense from your 2 favorite heretics and Blake.
Could have mentioned something else. But no. Yeah, also bear with us if we've made mistakes in this podcast as well, because like I said, we're not professionals, but we are trying to, get better as we go along, and this is our first ever episode of ever doing something like this, so please bear with us and give us some faith.
Excellent. Cue
the right faith,
outro.
No faith in chaos.
Papa Nurgle. Cue outro music.